and the Germans kind of strafed us mercilessly, and our guerrilla group were pushed back to the sea, and some monks came out of the monastery of Saint-Cyr and took care of the wounded, and they also had a brandy that was extraordinary that I remember with a kind of religiosity. It was like the Holy Grail. And now I'm very old, in a wheelchair, hard of hearing, and very rich. And I insist that my daughter, Catherine Hicks, go back and find the monastery. And being an atheistic country, they don't have any monks. The monastery is abandoned, so some Yugoslav bureaucrats disguise themselves as monks. And in this monastery, they take vows of silence. So the Yugoslav actors do it all in mime. And the bells toll every hour, but silently. And they're really able to reinstate the brandy, and they find the secret ingredient is silence, which makes this brandy extraordinary. So when I'm in a hospital at the end, and I get this thing that they've put together, and I drink it, and I'm immediately exhilarated, get out of bed and pursue the nurse.
It sounds like a good picture for release this.
I tell it very well.
You do indeed. For release this fall or this Christmas season?
In March or April.
Oh.
It's an American production with Yugoslav co-backing.
Do you find acting overseas enjoyable?
Oh dear, yes. I remember marvelous experiences. I did a film with Dick Crenna and Yul Brynner in Spain. I was there for 3 months in 1971, and I worked about every fourth day, and my wife and I would travel from Almeria to Granada and Cordoba and Seville, and it was glory, just glory. And the hill towns in southeast Spain are so beautiful and uncultivated. Just an amazing experience. I've been on location in England and Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, Austria.
Great opportunity to see the world.
It is, and you're treated marvelously.
You've had a great, illustrious background, over 100 films, stage, movies. Mm-hmm. You've been a director.
Yes.
Do all actors want to become a director at some point in their career?
We direct ourselves, particularly in film, where you prepare in isolation. There are occasions when you rehearse the whole play, the whole screenplay, but generally no. So you have to devise ways of working by yourself and talking to people who you project there in an environment. So you're just not working on the lines, but you're working in a relationship and hearing and seeing their response to you. So you kind of keep it lively and out there rather than, knowing my lines and listening to your lines. So we have to be our own directors in a sense. I'm not minimizing the value of that other director who collaboratively works with the product of my directing along with his and along with the other actors.
What happens when they clash? There's a difference of opinion.
It really rarely happens. There's such a body of talent in where films are made that the pool is really so extraordinary that half the trick is getting the right cast.
We have heard of conflicts between actors and directors where an actor would think the scene should be played this way and the director insists on...
Well, sometimes an actor is kind of in charge and has very strong feelings about it. He has a right to kind of manifest his feeling. He's on film, and they find ways of working it out. But I think clashes, I'm talking a difference of opinion and really trying to work things out could be salutary. But I mean, I've seen very few incidences of tantrums and being outrageous or selfish and saying, I don't like the way he's doing that. And I've seen really very little of that.
That's really very non-professional, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it is, but is I have a kind of an eccentric reserve in my nature. The word professional doesn't seem to mean much anymore. A lot of people are nominally professional this, professional that. I think it's the quality of the person which is much more important than the fact that he's a professional. I rather love the word amateur that comes from the root word to love. Someone once said that Charles Laughton was the greatest amateur actor in the world, and I've reason to believe that Charlie just loved that and regarded it as an accolade, because sometimes professional competence is so leaden and predictable. So anyway, that's my erratic response to when people say you're such a pro. So I'm a pro. It's like there's over 65,000 members of Screen Actors Guild, most of them who just worked once, but they will not relinquish that card because I'm a professional. See, I've got a union card.
You've worked with hundreds of actors, thousands, in the time you've been in the profession. Is Laughton one of the people that
I
you
never
worked
worked with Charlie. I'm one of the few actors who turned down Bertolt Brecht. After the war, my wife was pregnant, a logical sequence, and Brecht wanted me in Charlie Laughton's Galileo for very little money, of course. And I had a chance to go on location in a Pop Sherman movie. He used to be the producer of the Hopalong Cassidys. So I went to Utah for about 2 months and made a good deal of money and turned down Brecht and Laughton.
Do you regret it? Having made the money and not having had the artistic?
We needed the money, my lord. I was away for 3 years. I went to the Navy when my daughter Evie was 2 weeks old, and there was another child coming, and I had to reinstate my career. I kind of regret it, but you can't have everything.
Sure.
You know.
These questions are always so mundane, but you know they're always interesting too.
All right.
Do you have a favorite role, or one that you enjoyed more than others? And
I think, yes. I had the opportunity to do the most, what is regarded as the most difficult role in the repertory. That's King Lear, and I did it in Beverly, Mass. In 1973, and to really wonderful, wonderful reviews. And the beauty of it was I was still in my 50s when I did it, and Lear is in 80 and upward. I feel it was a blessing that I entered my dotage in make-believe, and now I'm not in my dotage and might be on my way, at least chronologically, but I learned so much about being older and the attrition of age and the unreasonableness of it.
how did you learn this?
Well, by understanding, Lear, that we're brought into the world with this range of capability, and we grow to be these unique and extraordinary entities. You know, what a piece of work is man. And then arbitrarily, little things happen. They call it neuronal decay, and there are certainly shifts of moods, or you kind of a nuisance that these younger people don't know who I am, and it kind of piques you, or you become fitful about forgetting when in fact all your life you forgot things, but when you're older you say, oh, I just, damn, I can't remember things. Of course that happens to kids too. Kids come to you and say, hey, you know what, Jim? And you say, what? And they say, huh? See, so it happens when they're little, but older people attack themselves for forgetting. And these shifts in mood, and where Lear has great clarity and a sense of who he is, and the next moment he's almost apologetic and obsequious. So there's a kind of rehearsal for what may yet be. And I love playing the role, and I love the fact that it substantiated something that I always believed in, that the tougher the role is and the more variegated, the more important it is to make it about one thing. And I think I found the one thing, and I felt very gratified that I was able to pull it together.
How old were you when you played the role?
In when?
How old were you when you played Lear?
When I played Lear, let's see, I'm 73 now, and I played it 14 years ago. I guess I was 59, and I kept, I jogged and played tennis and took a lot of vitamins, ate good food. I've always been on this kind of regimen. I think it's sit up straight, Jeff. I think it's part of the responsibility of an actor to bring a body that's lively and energetic. There are some series here and there that I've been up for, where they wanted an older man. In one case, they thought I looked a little too lively. They wanted to have a guy who just passed everything, you know. And, you know, like we want a character whose last fling was 15 years ago. I was penalized for an excessive vitality.
Conte Candoli, trumpeter with the Tonight Show Orchestra, was on the Ball State University campus to solo with the Ball State University Jazz Ensemble for the opening of the second season Art of Jazz series. We now see part of that performance. That was Conte Candoli, trumpeter with the Tonight Show with the Ball State University Jazz Ensemble. Dr. James Coffin, who is acting chairman of the Ball State University Department of Anthropology, takes Ball State students on trips to various parts of the world each year, and some very interesting places. And he's talking about taking them to the Northwest, the Indian Territory. Dr. Coffin, you chose what part of the Northwest?
Okay, the places that we're going to go will be Vancouver Island and the west coast of British Columbia and the Queen Charlotte Islands. And we're going to start on June 10th next year out of Seattle and ferry to Victoria, and then take their highway system and visit various Indian communities and people along the way. And then we'll take a ferry boat ride from Port Hardy all the way to Prince Rupert. That's a 14-hour ferry boat ride. And then we'll also have to ferry from Prince Rupert to Skidegate Village, which is a Haida village. That's 6 hours by water. And then again their highway system to Masset. So that will be the route of the trip.
Now, you've been there.
Yes.
So, okay,
Yes.
you've talked to the Indians. Let's take a look at what students can expect to see and find out what benefit will it be to the students.
Okay, this will be the boat that we go on. It's called the Queen of the North. It's part of the BC ferry system. When we first started designing this trip, I thought we'd be on some old rusty tub, you know. But these are fine luxury
Very
ships.
modern.
$42 too. This 14-hour ride will cost each student only $42 for the fare. And this is the beautiful scenery that you'll see on this. This is like going through the Rockies on water, you know. These are a seafaring people that we're going to meet up with. Here's one of their coastal communities. This is at Bella Bella, where we'll be stopping off for 4 days.
These are not Indians. These are
yes, this is an Indian village.
This is an Indian
village.
This
is an Indian reserve.
Have permanent residences.
Absolutely, yeah. These are logging and fishing communities. And we'll meet with such people as carvers. This is Reg Davidson. Actually, he lives at the tip of Queen Charlotte Island, the northern part. Very famous carver. His father is a hereditary chief of Masset, a northern village in the Queen Charlottes. And a year ago carved his father a pole reminiscent of his family history.
How do they use the poles?
They use the poles as heraldic poles and tell stories of their family's history. And a chief can actually put this in his yard as part of his rank prerogative. This is the inside of his father's house, and these are masks that Reg has carved. Both his father and he head up dance troupe. They are involved in the Renaissance of the arts.
So these are actually used. They're not tourist pieces.
No, no, these are actually used. You know. There's also another use for the totem pole, and that is as memorial poles in cemeteries.
These are quite old, I imagine.
Yes. This is at Alert Bay. This is an interesting. This is a 50-foot canoe. It's called Wave Eater. It was built by the Haidas at Queen Charlotte.
Is it an old boat?
No, it's a new boat built in '85.
All in the style.
This is a Nootka chief, a hereditary chief, Adam Sheshwap. And we were at his house and asked him if it would be all right if we brought some students up, you know, from Ball State. And this is his reply.
I think the breakthrough's got to come sometime. They got to get to know us, and we're always willing to do things around here, speaking for the Indians. I know last few years now we've had all Indian sports days, and the people come from all over the place. But our own white people over here, you can count them in your hands, how many there is there. Not a heck of a lot go to see it.
So
and
you
here,
don't.
Here we cater to everything what they got.
So you don't mind if I bring a few people from Indiana next year?
No problem.
Sit around and talk to you a little bit.
No problem. I'd really like that, because that breakthrough's got to come through sometime. Because as I say, a majority of my people are too willing to do things, and I find it very depressing when our own local white society doesn't want to mingle with us. Mind you, there's few that does it, but the majority of the people aren't there. And I'd really appreciate you guys coming over next year if you...
Very interesting in that he said the local white people are not interested, but someone like you would come 2,000 miles.
Exactly.
Talk with us.
He said that we could spread our sleeping bags up, you know. Now, he is a hereditary chief, and he has to deal with contemporary issues, and one of these issues is the logging that's going on. They're sort of caught in a bind here. When the Indian soul wants to express itself, it often uses the cedar as a medium for that expression in their totem pole carvings and so on. And at the same time, though, they earn their bread and butter through logging, and
that
so
is
you have an
Indian
inherent. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful outfit.
This is Annie Kramer. She has a blanket dress on. She's an 80-year-old Kwakiutl lady who is involved in the renaissance of her people, involves herself in a lot of children's programs. These are the kind of people that we will be discussing problems
She
with.
remembers the early history,
Yes.
the mining, gold mining, and all.
Right.
And, oh, those are lovely.
I think this is interesting too. Again, the blanket dresses. Now, those are pearl buttons that bound the designs.
Look at the contrast, the television sets.
Exactly.
On
I'm holding a copper here. This is a gift in a traditional competitive feast called a potlatch, which now is more of a social than anything. It's down to like a one-day affair.
Well, look at what we have here. We have this as what kind of a drum?
Okay.
Beautifully decorated too.
This is called a tambourine drum. It's deer hide, and it deals with a sea bear eating a halibut. But these were traditionally These were traditionally used in curing rituals.
And this mask was it carved by the young man we saw on the screen?
No, it was carved by another. If you remember the old lady with the dress,
yes.
This was her grandson, Tony Hunt, and he's a very well-known carver too. This is Kakwama, the god of the undersea world.
Beautifully crafted. The detail is so fine. These are actually used?
Oh yes, yeah. They're put on in dance dramas, especially in the winter ceremonies.
When will you and the Ball State students be leaving?
We'll be leaving Seattle on June 10th and getting back to Seattle on July 1st. And each student will find his way to Seattle, however, and then we'll rendezvous in Seattle and go from there for 3 weeks.
Like a great trip.
It's just fantastic.
Thank you very much. Dr. James Coffin, acting chairman of the Department of Anthropology at Ball State University, talking about the upcoming trip to the Northwest Indian Territories with Ball State students. Thank you for joining us.